fugitive. But on July 8, 1980, Cathlyn Wilkerson's run from the law came to an end when she surrendered to police for her part in the 1970 New York townhouse explosion that left 3 dead. Cathlyn Wilkerson. She was the daughter of a wealthy advertising executive, born in 1945. By her late teens, she was joining the ranks of the emerging New Left movement. A member of the Students for a Democratic Society and editor of its newsletter, Wilkerson became a leading organizer for the group. She was vocal, dedicated, the epitome of a 1960s radical. And as the decade wore on, she took on an increasingly militant tinge. In 1969, with SDS splintering, Wilkerson aligned herself with the Weather Underground, a far left-leaning faction that would quite literally attempt to wage war against the U.S. government, debuting its tactics with a 4-day rally throughout the streets of Chicago that would be billed as the Days of Rage.
The Weatherman faction of SDS believes the revolution can only succeed through the use of violence, and there are radicals who say the organization can only survive by resorting to violence or confrontation with the establishment. So the shock troops, many in hippie-style dress, marched out of Lincoln Park looking for a fight.
Among those so-called shock troops was Cathlyn Wilkerson. She'd be one of hundreds arrested in the aftermath of what failed to live up to the hype. Charged with inciting a riot and assaulting police, Wilkerson was freed on $40,000 bond. But rather than keep a low profile, she, along with several other members of the Weather Underground, initiated a new strategy, a bombing campaign. Using the basement of a Greenwich Village townhouse owned by Wilkerson's father, they set up a makeshift bomb factory, though its operation would be short-lived, thanks to an accidental explosion in March of 1970.
In the wreckage, the bodies of 2 young people, a man and a woman, not related or known to owner Wilkerson, who was away on vacation. And as firemen picked their way through the rubble, other more serious and disturbing clues. In a rich man's home, they found a basement workshop with sticks of dynamite and the materials needed to make bombs.
The explosion would end up killing 3. All were members of the Weather Underground. Wilkerson made it out alive, but she didn't stick around for police. She made a run for it.
Police are centering their search in Chicago for the young woman who escaped the townhouse during the explosions. Cathlyn Wilkerson and Kathy Bowden are among the weathermen scheduled for a court appearance there tomorrow in connection with street disturbances.
Wilkerson was a no-show.
You plan to ask the FBI to come into this?
Yes, it's our intention at this time to ask the FBI to issue what we commonly call UFAP warrants. That's an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. We'll make that request sometime today.
Several months later, Wilkerson and 12 other members of the Weather Underground were indicted on charges related to the Greenwich Village explosion. But it would be years before Wilkerson would be made to answer for those charges. She eluded police for a decade before finally surrendering, walking into the Manhattan District Attorney's office to give herself up on July 8, 1980.
In New York today, Kathy Wilkerson, the radical who ended a 10-year FBI hunt when she surfaced earlier this month, pleaded guilty to a charge of possession of dynamite. In return, the district attorney dropped the charge of criminally negligent homicide. That stemmed from the 1970 blast of a Weatherman bomb factory in her home, in which 3 of her colleagues died.
Wilkerson was later sentenced to 3 years in prison. She'd be released after serving 11 months. And her life after would be a much quieter one than the one she led before, spending the next 20 years as a meth